I always love showing new people how to go from $0 to 5,000 without making more money. And I know some of you show these videos to your friends, right? And I'm wondering what their reaction is because, there's a lot of people out there where an extra 100, 200 bucks would be like a life send, and to go from 0 to 5,000 without making more money, you know, I think would be crazy, or they probably think it's crazy. But you know what happens to me when I show these, demonstrations to other people in real life is that they give me what I call a poker face, and then they don't show any emotion, and then I guess I have to leave the room for them to surely true their emotion, or maybe they'll look it up on Google or on the internet after I leave, right? But I'm on YouTube, so you can't escape me. But let's go ahead and get started and show off how to go from 0 to 5,000 without making more money in an instant. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to use something called the velocity method, which we used to call velocity banking, but we can't use that term anymore because using the word banking is not allowed, at least by the Illinois state government. Okay, so what we're going to do here is show you, this is the classic where you have the exact same income as expenses and your leftover checking is savings is zero, right? And then expense breakdown, we list down every single debt that we have. So 10 credit cards, an auto loan, a student loan, and a mortgage. And then on top of that, all of our personal expenditures that are not tied to debt, we just kind of lump in an average about $2,500 a month. So your numbers will vary probably month to month, but we're just using an average, right? And so we say, hey, you have absolutely nothing left over. So do you need to make more money to get out of this hole? Now, every single person that I've talked to and I've shown this to has always told me yes. Nobody's ever said, hey, in order to pay off the debt, like you don't need to make more money, right? You don't need to make more money to pay off the debt. And, when we do what we call the velocity method, same income, same expenses, what we're going to do is be deliberate in what's in our checking and savings, right? And we're going to increase this cash flow number. So, what do we mean deliberate is that even if we were positive in our checking or savings, we're going to make sure that number goes down to zero, right? And so, when a lot of people, they're really happy when they see money in their checking and savings account. Whereas with this method, we don't like to see any money in our checking and savings, right? So if we have a positive cash flow, zero in our checking and savings is the right number, right? And so what we're going to assume is we also have access to something called a line of credit. So what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. So there's personal lines of credit, and usually they kind of top out like 15 to 30 grand max on the personal side. And then there's home equity lines of credit where you can put your home equity as collateral, and then the bank will kind of give you like a credit card with the limit of 80 to 90% of your home equity, right? And if you don't know what home equity is, basically the balance of your loan, and then you subtract that from what they think your home is worth. And if you don't know how single family real estate works, it's just based on comparable sales. So if the house across the street sold for $1 million, your home is now magically worth $1 million, right? Because that's the market speaking to how much the value of that home is worth. Okay, so now this is what we're going to do is we're going to rank our debts using something called the cash flow index. So if you don't know what the cash flow index is, it's just a debt balance divided by the payment, so 175. And then we do this for all of our debts. So basically what happens is that we get a debt ranking system, and the lower the number, that's the debts we want to pay off first. So you'll notice that the 30-year mortgage here is an incredibly high number, 209. So why do we want to pay off that one off last? The reason why we want to pay out that one off last is because we literally have to give someone $300,000 to only get $1,400 a month back in our cash flow. Whereas we can pay this credit card and this credit card 65,000 for more than 2,000. So what makes more sense to pay 65,000 for more than $2,000 of cash flow, or 300,000? This is why we got to pay this one off less. And so what we're going to do is assume we have access to a $200,000 free and clear line of credit. Although we won't get a free and clear line of credit in real life because, for one reason, about how banking works and who they lend to. Banks don't lend money to people who need it. And if you need money, they will never give it to you or they will never lend it to you, right? Because the bank is a risk management institution. And so if you need money, they see what they see from their point of view is just a risky person who will never pay that money back. I mean, think about it in your own real life. When people borrowed money because they said they needed it, did they pay you back? The answer to that is no, right? The answer to that question is no. So they don't lend money to people who need it. Remember that. And so why do we use a free and clear line of credit? It's because it just makes the concept very easy to demonstrate. And you could clearly see that, hey, even if you didn't have more money, but you had a tool to help you consolidate your cash flow and make it easy to pay off your debt, like a line of credit, then you would never even been here at the $0 checking savings in the first place. Plus, I got more realistic scenarios behind a paywall, 99 cents. So if you want to see a more realistic scenario where people have like 22 debts, $4 left over, $5,000 of income, and a maxed out line of credit, because usually that's what happens. You can't get a new line of credit, but people treat their line of credit as a maxed out credit card. That's in the paywall. So I do put. So that's the reason why I don't demonstrate those situations, because it's much harder and takes a lot more brain power. Anyways, so the final step, okay, actually, I'm kind of skipping. Before we do the final step, what we got to do is move that debt, the low cash flow index debt, into the line of credit. So we take these 10 credit cards, it's $167,000 of debt. So that's 5, 8, 15, 27, 37, 10, 35, 12, 18, and then I'm going to go ahead and sum it up. That's 167,000. So let's move this $167,000 of credit card debt into the line of credit. And oh my goodness, guess what happens here? Because it's kind of like doing a balance transfer, right? So these 10 credit card payments go to zero. Whoa. So now this is how we literally go from zero to $5,160.71. And if you're new to the channel, and there are actually people who are new to the channel, I've been looking at YouTube analytics, and I think in the last 28 days, 25% of the viewers on this channel are new. So if you are looking at this for the first time, let me know what's going on in your mind. And if you are a veteran of this channel and you've been watching for a while and you've been trying to explain this to your friends, family members, what did they think? Yeah, when they go from here to here, right? So zero to $5,160.71. And then the final step is you put your entire paycheck into that line, take your expenses out, and rinse and repeat over and over again. And so magically, that debt will go down by $5,160.71 plus some interest, right? And so to calculate this, it's just the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus whatever the cash flow numbers at the time, 5160.71. And then what we do is we take the average daily balance, because that's how we calculate the interest rate, multiply by, or take the average daily balance, multiply the interest rate, and then divide it by 12, because the interest rate is quoted annually, but you divide by 12 to get the monthly interest. And so, yeah, so let's go ahead and copy and paste. And then we see that after every single month, the balance is going down, down, down. And what's crazy is that when we started at the beginning of the year, we were like, there's no way out. There's no way out. I'm struggling. I'm drowning, right? But when you're from here to here with the same income, then it's a game changer, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And so let's see how long it takes for us to pay off that credit card debt completely. And then now we see that in about 42 months, okay, 42 months. Oh wait, I screwed up. It's not even 42 months. I put the wrong cash flow from the previous demonstration. So we see that in 37 months, it gets paid off. Well, that's better than I expected, right? So 37 months. Okay, so now we just go in here, 37 months, 167K paid off, so less than 3 years. Not bad, not bad. And then now we tackle on the auto loan, the student loan, and the mortgage, right? And so now what we do here is we just put month 37 because that's the current month, and then we just take the current balances. So we have these kind of, they're not complicated formulas, but they're financial formulas that you can use to calculate the amortization and like all the balances at whatever month you're at. And so I really like this calculator. I actually constructed this myself. So here we have the current cash flow index, and then we just kind of follow the same path, right? So a lot of times what happens with most people is that they look at this 3% interest rate and say, oh, I should pay this off last, right? But why are we paying it off first? Is because we only need to pay 8 grand to get $395 of cash flow. Whereas here we're paying 22 grand for $348 of cash flow. So we're thinking of bang for our buck in terms of cash flow, right? So let's go ahead and pay off this auto loan first. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this. And then this is going to be plus 8824.98. And then we see that it gets paid off in 2 months, even if we don't update the cash flow. So let's go ahead and update it, $395.31. And then this 5556.02, right? Copy and paste this. And then so this is going to be 5556.02, right? And then bam, so still got paid off in 2 months. Didn't really make a difference, but oh well. Extra cash flow is always better because we're going to pay slightly less interest. Okay. And then so now I think it's 39 months. 39 months we paid it off, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do this 39 months. And then I'm going to go here. So it's 167 plus 22. So it's 189K. And then now is the student loan. So we're at month 39 with the student loan. 39, 39. And then one thing I always have to say is when you're dealing with amortized loans, you really do have to be careful about the interest rates, right? So I think it's okay to move a low interest rate into a line of credit as long as that cash flow index number is low enough. But with, let's say, a 30-year mortgage, you'll notice it's a really high number, and usually the interest rates are lower, right? So if you're moving like a 3-4% loan, and there's a lot of people out there with 30-year loans at that rate, and you move it into a line of credit, remember, this whole thing, this whole 282,000 will now be at an 8% interest rate. So then if you move it into a line of credit, you're just getting an itty bitty amount of cash flow, and so you're going to end up paying a lot more than you have to. Okay, so just remember that. Now for this one, because the interest rate is similar and the balance is relatively low, we can still move into a line of credit, although we might be slightly overpaying. But let me just go ahead and do this, be a little bit lazy. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do plus 22434.26. And then let's go ahead and increase that cash flow by $348, right? And then now our cash flow is almost 6 grand. So let's see what happens here. Okay. And then let's go ahead and update this to 5904.34. And then I'm going to go ahead, whoopsie, copy and paste. And then we see that it actually made a difference of 1 month, I think. So now we paid it off in 42 months. Whoa. All right. So now this is 42 months. And then this is going to be 189 plus 30. So that's going to be 219K. And then the mortgage, 300,000. So at 42 months, what's the balance of that mortgage? It's 280,000. So at this point, with the 30-year mortgage, we have two options, which is the $5,900 of cash flow, right? And just make it as an extra payment, or we can use a line of credit and then just sweep away the mortgage essentially, right? We just do it with a small amount. Don't do it with the large amount, because if you do it with the large amount or even the entire amount, remember, you're only getting an itty bitty amount of cash flow for that huge balance, right? So this is where the cash flow index becomes a little bit nuanced, because if you look at Garrett Gunderson, I think, who created it, his teachings is that, leave it alone, never pay it off or deprioritize. And I would say it needs to be paid off, but it just needs to be paid off last. Because if you ever see how a 30-year mortgage works, and then you go to the 30-year 360 payments, you end up, even on a 4% loan, paying about, I think, 75% interest, right? And then if it's something crazy like 7% for 30 years, you end up paying like double in interest than in the actual house, right? So that's why we got to be careful about, just say, hey, put your mortgage into a line of credit. So there's really, the only really safe way to kind of think about this is that you have to pay it off last. And not only that, is that you're going to do a small amount. So maybe like an easy kind of what's it called? Rule of thumb is probably just twice your cash flow. Okay, that's a relatively safe number, and then it should, your balance should go down relatively quickly. Now you might be saying, like, why don't I do the extra payments? And I'm just, and to be honest, I actually have no opposition to extra payments, right? Like, there's absolutely no opposition. The only reason why I say, like, hey, you might want to do this is because most people can't do it, because for pure psychological reasons. Number one is that when you make an extra payment to the loan, you can't get that money back, right? Or else, why doesn't everybody just overpay loans? It's easy, because once a loan has been overpaid, you can't get the money back. Okay. Now, what you can do is you can use credit cards and all these other tools that you have as backups. But what trips up most people is that they end up what we call segregating their income. So, what is income segregation? Basically, your money comes in and then it gets split all over the place, and then you have nothing left over. And what we're trying to do, and one of the tenets of this velocity method, is money just goes simply in one place, even if it's, let's say, the very last loan, right? We're trying to prevent the segregation of income. Okay. So that's why, right, we might use this. Okay. And there's kind of a difference in mindset. So the difference in mindset is that you're going to have to calculate, or actually think about, how much you're paying into that loan as an extra payment every single month, at least once a month, right? Which is kind of a lot of brain power. Now, if you use this method, which is you're just kind of moving a piece of loan in line of credit, there's really no thinking involved, because all you're doing is just moving the line, or the paycheck, um, to zero. I'm sorry, not your paycheck, your checking account to zero, and then making sure your line of credit goes to zero, and rinse and repeat over and over again, which is much easier to do than than directly overpaying a loan. Okay, a lot of people don't really think about this, but then, just from my experience of doing both, it's much harder to overpay a loan directly than just using a line of credit to help you bridge the overpayment, if that makes sense. Okay, so let me just kind of show you here. So give me one moment. Okay, so now I just got to put in the numbers here. So this is going to be a $300,000 balance. What's the current balance? It's 280,548.15. So 280,548.15. Interest rate is 4%, right? 30 years. And then what's the payment amount? It's 1432.25. So 1432.25. And then we're going to use an 8% line of credit. Now, obviously, we have some pretty huge income, but the only way that we can get this much debt is to start off with a huge income, right? Banks don't lend money to people who need it. 9836.59, so 9836.59. And then our living expenses is everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off, so it's 2500 here, so 2500. And then if we take a look at this chunk amount, it's just how much are we moving into the line of credit. So if we move this whole loan into the line of credit, you'll notice pays off in 3.8 years, but we paid 44 grand in interest, right? But let's do this. Let's move $10,000 into the line of credit and see that if we just do it in small chunks, it halves the amount of interest. And you know what's even crazier? I'll tell you what's even crazier is that if you do a 30% credit card with this chunking method, you still end up paying less than moving the whole loan into a line of credit at 8%. So this is where people get tripped up, because they don't see that, hey, even using a 30% credit card is probably better off than moving the whole loan into a line of credit, right? You don't want to move a 30-year loan, right? 30-year, and actually let me just show you the most extreme example of this, but let me write this down. It took us 3.5 years to pay off the debt, to pay off the mortgage. And look at me, I'm just saying 3.5 years to pay off a mortgage like it's nothing. But 3.5 years, okay? So let's just do this 300,000 for 30 years. So let's say we had a 0% interest loan. Okay, and I want to just quickly calculate how much the payment is for the 0%. So 833.33. So let's just do this. 833.33. Okay, let's say because we're really, really dumb, we decide that we're going to move the whole loan into an 8% line of credit because lines of credit are always better than loans according to the internet. Okay, well, if we do that, it will take us 4 years and 52 grand. Okay? So we paid 52 grand of interest when we didn't have to. Now take a look at this. If we do it in $10,000 chunks, we only pay 1 grand. So if you're going to make dumb decisions in your life, just pay only a little bit of interest rather than paying $50,000 of interest. Now this is a 0% loan. So what I'm saying is that hey, even if you had no idea what you're doing, which is probably hopefully not the case, um, in this model or scenario, what's the worst case you happen? You pay less than 2 grand, right? You still paid off early. And even if you use a 30% credit card, the worst case scenario is that you're going to pay about 6.5 grand. But if you move the whole loan into a line of credit, you're paying 52 grand. Okay. like, you know, and the reason I showed 0% because that's like the worst case scenario of using this method because even if you use a line of credit for 1 day, you're paying more interest than you ever would just by making the minimum payment for 30 years in a 0% loan. Right, so we have to use a little bit of common sense and not just say line of credit always better than loan. Right, we don't want to do that. And plus, I think I have to modify this image because we can't use this second word anymore. Okay, all right. Well, that's it for today, folks. This Korean Lanta mentorship here with another video. So let me just do this. So it'd be 42 divided by 12 plus 3.5. And then so that's 7 years till we're debt free, completely debt free. And that's pretty much it. So have a great day, everybody, and let me know in the comments if you've ever tried to engage in what I call financial evangelism, right? Financial evangelism. You spread the word to your friends and family, and then they might look at you like you're insane, like they do to me. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.